This is the Bama Podcast with Marty Solomon. I'm his co-host, Brent Billings. Today we are venturing into new territory and approaching the podcast with a different perspective for a season.
For just a season. And it won't be, I don't think it's going to be a long season. It's going to be longer than Session 5. It's going to be more going on. Session 5 was short. It's a short little church history jaunt.
Yeah.
It's going to be a little longer than that, but it's going to be more like Session 5 than it is like Session 6. I'll say that much.
Well, and I will also say, if this is your very first episode, I think the way the podcast app structures this is if you are a brand new listener and you come to the podcast, I think it shows you season 7. I think it shows you the most recent season at the top. So if for some reason you are, I think within a season, it orders them from the beginning to the end, but it does put the most recent season at the top, I think. That's the way it works. So if this is your first episode, know that this is perhaps a strange place to begin. The whole idea of this podcast, or at least the genesis of this podcast, is a walkthrough of the narrative that God is telling in the world, mostly through the Bible. We do one session that Marty just referred to. Session 5 is on church history. It's basically everything after Revelation up to current day. We kind of walk through and obviously it's not an exhaustive walkthrough. It is our shortest session, but it kind of gives you a narrative thread, like how did we get to where we are today from the end of that story. But really, if you're starting this podcast for the first time, the basic idea is to go back to season 1, and episode 0 is actually where you want to begin. That introductory lesson that kind of gives you an idea of what our challenges are for reading the Bible as it was written, as the original audience would have understood it. And we kind of walk through that whole process, and there's a lot to learn, and it's a little bit crazy. It's a little weird because it's just so not the culture that we have grown up in, that we know so well. So it's a challenge, but it's good work. And the whole reason I'm here today is because I went through that process and I'm still going through that process in some ways. So that's what we'd suggest. Obviously, we can't make you do anything, but that's the idea.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's definitely designed to be a journey. And that was a long time ago when we started that, 2016. We were different people, you and I. Brent Billings, you and I were different people back then when we started this. But it's still the journey as it's designed. And so it's a great place to start. So episode 0 is where we recommend.
Indeed. So session 7, we're calling this session Sabbath, I believe, right?
What are we calling this session? We never actually talked about a title. Sabbath Diaries?
Sabbath Diaries?
I don't know.
I think we're just calling
at this
it
point,
Sabbath.
We're just vamping out loud for everybody to hear. Season 7 Sabbath. Yeah. And I think the right place to start, before we even get into this, before we talk about how clever we are, Season 7. Sabbath. I'm too impressed with myself at this point. But the reason kind of driving this is that I'm actually headed on sabbatical. When this comes out, I will already be on sabbatical. Is that correct, Brent?
Indeed, yes.
Yeah. So
you'll be a couple weeks in at this point.
Yeah. And in some ways, I've kind of been on sabbatical for really a couple years. So people know at this point in season 7, like, I have this ethnic Jewish heritage. I live a Torah observant life. I try to let Torah guide and direct a lot of the principles, obviously the law that I live by, the kosher eating, the kosher clothing, all that kind of stuff. And we go through all that at session 4, pretty in depth. But part of how that ends up fleshing itself out is with the Sabbath year and the year of Jubilee, both of which are slightly irrelevant in a lot of ways because modern Judaism, or should I say Talmudical Judaism, for the last 1800 years, the rabbis decided that the Sabbath year was only relevant. It's connected to the physical land of Israel. So only if you live in the land of Israel do you follow Shemitah. Shemitah is what you call, it's the name of the Sabbath year, the Shemitah. So only if you live there are you bound to any. And yet I have always wanted to look at that same calendar year as a sabbatical rhythm of my own. At Impact Campus Ministries, all of our employees are required. It's a part of our policy and procedure at Impact Campus Ministries to have all of our staff take a sabbatical every 7 years. It's a biblical rhythm. I like it. And so I've always kind of let Torah kind of define that rhythm. Well, last year, not the one we're currently in, but last Jewish year, the Jewish calendar year, was the Shemitah. And so I kind of let that drive my Impact sabbatical rhythm. So we changed up some of our everyday daily practice, our monthly practice. We changed up for a whole year. We changed up some of our rhythms. We kept some of them, but we also stopped doing some. We borrowed some new rhythms. We did a whole bunch of stuff. And Brent, you might even want to link the very first post to the sabbatical journal that I was keeping online. If anybody wants to really look at what that looked like or follow along what that journey has been for the last 2 years, you can kind of follow along on that journal. But I start those entries by talking about like what this is and how it operates. And so I've kind of been on this journey for a while. And then the second year, I determined, 15, 20 years ago, before I even worked at Impact, really, as I was just starting to work at Impact 15 years ago, I kind of identified on the calendar that this would be the Jubilee. It's completely arbitrary. There's nothing biblically binding about that. Jews haven't even observed a Jubilee year since their return under Persian rule. So it's completely in a hard, if you hold these with clenched fists, it's completely irrelevant. But again, is there a principle here? Is there something that can guide my own worship and my own development? And so I've been in my Jubilee year for this last calendar year. And as that came to a close, my team at Impact said, the one thing that you really haven't done this entire 2 years is stopped, like truly sabbaticaled. You haven't stepped away. You haven't unplugged from your email. You haven't stopped your work and actually found a true ceasing, sabbatical, restful space. And so they said, I think the last 100 days of these 2 years needs to be a more true sabbatical in a sense. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. From Memorial Day to Labor Day, I'm having what we're calling our 100-day step away. So I'm stepping away from email. I'm stepping away for 100 days. Now, at Impact, that's still a very guided time. We actually call them working sabbaticals, which makes everybody laugh whenever I say it. But we actually call it that on purpose for a reason. And that's because a lot of times in ministry, people will take sabbaticals. And a lot of times a sabbatical is what, Brent? Like when you hear like a minister saying, I'm taking a sabbatical for 3 months. What do you picture when somebody typically says that?
Getting away, probably like physically, like getting out of town. Completely removing yourself from the normal work rhythms and like diving into like deep personal reflection, ministry reflection, whatever, and figuring out like, where do I go from here?
Yeah, I think that's pretty generous. I think you've described typically when we hear that, I think a lot of people just think of a big vacation. Like I'm just going to go away for 3 months and I'm going to find a bunch of renewal and just pull away from work. And yet what happens so many times for people in ministry when they do that is they kind of stop working for 3 months. It's kind of undefined. There was no plan. We kind of just do a bunch of the work we need to do around the house and whatever. And we get done with the 3 months and we feel maybe even worse sometimes than when we started. Like the sabbatical never really accomplished its purpose. So one of the things that we try to do really well at Impact is sabbatical. And so we create plans months ahead of time. We create a plan, a proposal of what it's going to look like to get into sabbatical, what it's going to look like to come out of sabbatical, and what are the things that we're going to intentionally be doing. What's the structure that we have already set up to make sure that our sabbatical is successful? Like where will we find rest? And where will we find development? And where will we find family renewal? And we're going to plan those things out. Not that everything has to go according to plan, but that there will be some guidance to that experience. And so,
and I don't know how standard that 100-day number is, or 3 months or whatever you want to call it. I don't know if that's like the default, but I think part of it is typically people who work in ministry have a tendency to be burned out because they don't set good boundaries, or they don't, whatever, like there's just lots of things. And so you actually need that amount of time, because you're going to burn through the first 2 or 3 weeks just decompressing from all of the stress that you put on yourself from those normal work rhythms. And so you need that longer period of time to actually get to the point where you can sit down and reflect and look into the future a bit.
Yep. Yeah. And that's very true. And part of the reason why we work so hard to consider how we're entering sabbatical is hopefully to shorten some of that time, that buffer where you just like are reacting and like settling in. Like hopefully it's kind of like entering and exiting a fast. Like if people are familiar with physical fasting, like you can do yourself a lot of good by considering the days entering a fast and the days coming out of a fast can really impact your physical experience. And the same is true for sabbatical. Like if you can enter sabbatical with intention and exit with intention, then the sabbatical itself is more ready to do its work. So that's what we've done. And we've planned that out. So I'm stepping away for 100 days, not just for a 100-day vacation, but there's actually a whole bunch of stuff that I hope to accomplish. I'm going to actually be joining a spiritual director, and we're going to go through the 19th annotation, which is a part of Ignatian spiritual tradition. And so we're going to do that for the 100 days. There are some intentional vacations that we have scheduled as a family, but it's a structured time with a bunch of things in my journal that I'm going to be trying to fill out and consider and reflect on. So that's that. But part of the thing that we're going to be doing, Brent, is truly stepping away, which is going to be, that's easier said than done, to have Marty Solomon step away from the office, from BEMA, from meetings, from Zoom calls, from my email. But darn it, we're going to pull it off, aren't we?
Yeah. And I think part of what's going to make it effective is we actually have to be pretty harsh about it. Like you are being cut off entirely.
Ugh, yes. There's a good Hebrew word to be used there.
Yes.
Being cut off from the community. But in a healthy sort of a way.
No email for Marty, no social media, no,
Yep.
And we got to be strict about it, because it's so easy to fall into what's normal. Like you are somebody who lives, I'm not nearly as disciplined as you are, but you are somebody who lives on a very, very regular schedule of doing this on this day, and this, these 3 things every morning, and these, this thing every Monday, this thing every Tuesday, this thing every Friday. Like you have these rhythms, and we got to cut all that out, because the space is not going to be effective for what we want it to be if you are constantly diving into emails and social media messages.
Yeah. So we're going to have some auto responses that are going to be put in place. Emails are going to be deleted, by the way. Like I'm not going to see them. So if you email me in this time, because you're like, no, I'm special. Like Marty has to see my email. I won't, because the email is going to, between Memorial Day and Labor Day, I'm not going to try to catch up on 3 months worth of email. If you think I'm doing that, then you think I am crazier than I am. All those emails will just be deleted. So if they're important, you'll have to catch me after Labor Day. So they're all just going to go away. Emails are going to be redirected. All the BEMA contact form emails, all those are going to be redirected to new places, social media. I'm going to have a copy and paste response that I have for like personal text messages. And that's just kind of like an auto response that just, I'm not trying to be mean, but if I don't set these boundaries, like Brent says, with like a harsh, this is what it means, then I'll never truly find that space. So if you get a copy paste response that says this is a copy paste response, just letting you know I'm on sabbatical and I won't be responding, catch me in September. Don't be offended by that. It's just part of what it means to do sabbatical well. So yeah, there you go. I don't know if there's anything else we need. People need to know that part of these will also be new rhythms, by the way, at BEMA. Like when I get back from sabbatical, we're not going to redirect all the email back to me, because that was never healthy to begin with. So a lot of that email redirection is going to continue. Use those contact forms. The team's going to help me and help us. Your emails get seen. Unless there's a failure with a contact form or something, your emails get seen by somebody, usually responded to. I would say probably 90% of our emails or more get a personal response of some kind from somebody. But your emails definitely get seen. They get read. They get passed on to the right people. We're going to start funneling all of our Bible question messages to a pool that we're going to deal with a new live stream Q&A approach. We do these monthly live streams, and we're going to try to funnel all those Bible questions into the same space so that we can deal with them all in the same way, rather than responding to, 100 emails a month about, everybody's questions about the Bible and stuff like that. We're going to try to do that in a healthier way for all of us. What else am I missing, Brent? Anything else we should add to that?
Well, and just on those questions, like we talked about this in the last episode, debriefing your book tour, like we all are pretty much dealing with the same kind of stuff.
Yep.
Like we all have the same questions. They're going to be a little bit different. Like everybody's context is going to be different. Every background is going to be different. Like there's going to be different nuances to it. But in a lot of ways, we're all dealing with the same struggles. You're going to hear us talk about it with The Chosen. Like the Sermon on the Mount is so applicable today, just as it was then, just as it has been for all of history. Like we just deal with the same stuff. So we're going to try to take a more practical approach, more useful approach. We're never going to be able to answer the questions for everybody. But hopefully we can set things up in a way that gives people the tools to process through that and think through things on their own or in their own local community, rather than Marty having to be and the Q&As have never been Marty the answer guy anyway. But like we just want to move intentionally more away from that idea that you have to come to Marty to get your answers.
Right.
Because it's not healthy for Marty, and it's not healthy for you.
Yep. Yeah. So our sabbatical is serving as the impetus, the seed of new practice that we're going to keep even coming out of sabbatical. It's a great time to transition to some new practices and new ways of communicating. And it's going to hopefully be good. And hopefully you guys will all celebrate that goodness with us, because there were some things that we were getting trapped in that maybe weren't the healthiest. And sabbatical is going to help us kind of reset some clocks. And so you'll see us hopefully doing that, hopefully well, stewarding that well. And
sabbatical is not for you your ultimate dream, your fully realized, idealized Marty, where you get to go into a little cabin on top of a mountain deep in the Montana wilderness. You still have a family, you still have a life. So there are some personal things that will be happening during your sabbatical.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about those, but those things are going to happen, but that doesn't mean like, oh, Marty's here, he's available for this or that. Like it's going to be a different kind of situation.
Yeah. No, just hold on. I'm just letting that picture sink in. Me in a cabin, alone, on a mountain. Just letting that wash. I'm just letting that image wash over me.
Yes, let it wash.
It's beautiful. But yes, now back to reality. So I have there are some really fun things. Like I do love my family. I would love a cabin on a mountain too, but I do love my family. And we got a bar mitzvah coming up in June for my son. And that's going to be awesome and a great way to be on sabbatical. We're going to take a family vacation to our ancestral homelands, the UK. The Solomon family is going to visit my whole paternal side of my family, where the Jewish heritage is from. We're all from Cornwall, England. For almost 800 years, my family lived in Cornwall. So we're going to go visit England, visit Wales. I need to check my genealogy again. I'm pretty sure a lot of my mom's side, there's a whole side of my maternal side that's from Wales, actually. And I visited there when I was a senior in high school, but I'm taking my family and we're going back, and we're going to talk about where our family narrative is and where we come from and what that means for us, and just be able to enjoy some beautiful vacation together. And I got some more vacation that I'm not even going to tell you guys about. I'm just going to keep it to myself because it's our vacation. And there you
go. But like the UK one specifically, like we mentioned that in the Bama Messenger email.
Yeah.
Like you are potentially going to be meeting some listeners.
Yeah.
But those meetings are not going to be the same, like sit down and talk about the podcast kind of thing. It's going to be,
I'm sure we'll talk. Listen, I love to talk about the Bible, and I love to talk about Jesus, and I love to talk about, but I'm not being driven by a work agenda because I'm on sabbatical. So
right.
I hope to meet a bunch of people, because how often am I in Scotland? Like never. So while I'm in Scotland, if I get to meet any of you, like that will be awesome. If I get to meet some of you in London, that'll be epic. Just because I love to meet people, and that is fun, and you're going to make the trip more awesome, and it will be great. So watch for, we'll put that stuff on the website. It's some of the only stuff you're going to see from me on the sabbatical. But if you are in the UK, I would love just to make some new friends over there, because I don't want to miss that opportunity. So there you go.
Yes. In some ways a learning experience, because like, how do you vacation and meet people?
Absolutely. Speaking of learning experience, the big season 7 experience. Shall we talk about that?
Let's do it.
So we're letting sabbatical. Here's the thing. I thought we would do session 6 forever, because I was being clever, and I'm like, no, session 6 just goes on forever, because session 7 would be Sabbath. So we got to save session 7 for the day that we like close down the podcast forever. But we have no intention of closing down the podcast for like, who knows how many episodes. I don't see an end in sight, Brent Billings. And here I had a sabbatical, and it just perfectly, beautifully collides. Why not do a session 7 on the theme of sabbatical during my sabbatical, to think about Sabbath and do something totally different? And so that's what we're going to do for season 7. The first 7 episodes or so are basically going to be driven by me, and we're just going to reflect on Sabbath. Now, these episodes, you need to listen to me. I need you to be prepared. These episodes are going to be different, because that's the whole point of Sabbath. These episodes are not going to be full of content. They're not going to be full of information. They're not going to be full of data, because that would not be Sabbath. So session 7 is going to be different. It may totally suck. Who knows? I think it's going to be totally awesome. Who knows? But it's going to be awesome, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean on Josh's Mishkan series. That was a thing, wasn't it, Brent Billings?
Yes.
There was a good amount of content in that series, if I do remember our timestamps correctly. We had a couple hour episodes in there.
Yeah, maybe by the time people are done listening to those episodes, this session
They're
7
ready
will
for
be
a
done
Sabbath.
anyway.
Yeah. So I loved that journey that Josh led us through. It was very Sabbathy anyway, because it's connected to the tabernacle. It's connected to Genesis, and it's just connected to Josh Basse's heart, which is already wired towards Sabbath anyway. So I feel like his reflection points through that series for us at the end of session 6 provide a beautiful roadmap to reflect on Sabbath moving forward. So session 7, those first 7 episodes led by me, are going to be reflective. They're going to have like music or silence, or I don't know, but they're going to be Sabbathy. I'm not going to get on and talk for 40 minutes. That's stupid. That would not be Sabbath. I may get on and lead us in like directed prayerful space. I've had friends that call it directed prayer, like some prompts, and then like 5 minutes of music where I'm inviting you to actually think about that, journal about that, reflect on that, rest in that, which I know that if you listen while you drive is weird. I get it. I know that if you listen to it while you're running on the treadmill, you're going to be like, this doesn't work. Yeah, I know. But this is different than the other 6 sessions. And that's on purpose. So maybe you'll listen to the podcast differently. Maybe you won't. Maybe you'll listen to it. Maybe, that's fine. But maybe you'll even choose to join me in my sabbatical space by finding your own unique sabbatical-like way of engaging in a sabbatical-themed season. These episodes will be different. And it won't just be me. We'll also have the rest of the team join us in this session eventually as well. I think the first 7 episodes you're going to hear from me, and then you're going to hear from the rest of us, Brent, and we're all going to be sharing about different things, right?
Yes, yeah.
Still themed around Sabbath. It still won't be like content heavy, but what do we got planned for that?
Well, everyone's going to talk about their personal practice. We're going to have a couple of extra episodes talk about prayer and fasting specifically. Reed's going to come on and talk about the idea of a media fast. We also do have an interview episode in the middle that might be I'm not sure exactly where that's going to land yet, but that's going to be maybe a good resource where you're like, okay, how do I do like a simple, I mean, it's in a way, it's like a potential way to do a practice. It's like a series of workbook style things. Like how do I develop a more regular spiritual practice of, whether you're going through it on your own or whether you're going through it with a group. Like the whole idea of spiritual practice is just going to be the latter half of this session.
Yeah, I think Reed he may have even changed his idea. We'll see when we get there in session 7. I think Reed wanted to try to talk Derek into coming on and talking about the spiritual practice of friendship. Which if Derek comes on and does that would be epic. That would be great. I think I've said the word epic now 3 times this episode, so I need to stop. But that would be great. Like Reed and Derek have one of the greatest friendships I've ever seen, and it is a spiritual practice. And I hope Derek says yes to that because that would be awesome. But yeah, you'll hear from Elle, you'll hear from Josh, you'll hear from Reed, you'll hear from me about spiritual practice, about spiritual discipline.
I'm actually really interested in that episode because I'm curious to see what has maybe changed or evolved since episode 24 way back in the day.
Sure.
We talked about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we got some good stuff on there.
And we realize this is going to be very different, like totally different. Session 8, we're going to get into session 8 after this, and it's going to be all the stuff.
We'll go back to normal. 6 days you may do your work, and we will get back to work in session 8.
Right. It's going to be all the things that we learned from session 6. It's going to be us growing together. It's going to be, your typical deep dives. In fact, I think Josh is going to, his first big series in session 8, Josh is going to talk about Sabbath, and that'll be a deeper conversation, more intellectual, more Hebrew words thrown around. Like that's going to be more what you expect when we talk about Sabbath, but this is actually going to be Sabbath is the idea.
Absolutely. So don't worry. Bema Podcast isn't changing, but Bema Podcast is taking a Sabbath because I can't think of anything that's more Bema Podcast than stopping and doing something different for our 7th session.
And we are throwing in Chosen season 3 as bonus episodes starting this next Monday. So for those of you who watch the Chosen, you'll have that.
For those of you that just can't take a Sabbath, we're going to let you have your idolatrous information.
Oh man. But yeah, we are recording basically this entire thing ahead of time. The session 7 capstone we will record after Marty is done with his sabbatical time. So that'll be a little bit of a debrief of the session of the podcast of Marty's sabbatical time. So we'll come back for that. But basically everything else is recorded ahead of time. When I told my wife about this, I was like, yeah, Marty's going on sabbatical. He's not going to do any work. We need to record 16 episodes in the month of May. And she's like, do you understand how that sounds? But we are doing these episodes very different. Like the recording burden for these episodes is going to be very different than a normal recording. So
that's correct.
Don't worry. Like we're trying to give Marty a healthy sabbatical time and hopefully people can join us on this journey and experience that idea of Sabbath, hopefully from a new perspective. Lots of perspectives on the back half. Like we're going to hopefully show people some new ways of doing things and help people develop new, more meaningful practices in their lives.
I can't wait to see what we learn for session 14. It's going to be great.
Yeah,
because that'd be our next 7. So then we'd have to do it all over again.
I love it. Okay, well, that does it for this episode. Once again, just go to BayModestEpisode.com, use that contact page. I don't know. I mean, obviously you can't really get a hold of Marty during this time.
Sure can't. Talk to you in season 8, suckers.
Yeah. I don't know. Like what like, would you encourage people to even hold their questions? Maybe try out something different, like journaling their thoughts instead of, I mean, I don't know, like we're doing something different. Like, take this opportunity to do something different. Take the opportunity to join Marty in this time of rest. And
tell you what's going to be great is if you have a discussion group, you guys can all decide what that might look like for you and come up with even new, like your own expression of season 7 in some unique way. And that will be, I can't wait to hear those stories when I'm back.
I love that.
When I'm back, I'll hear those stories when I'm back.
Yeah. When you go through that time, like, we definitely want to hear those stories. So use the contact page for that kind of stuff. That'd be great. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on the Bama Podcast. We will talk to you again soon.